Tuesday, January 26th, it's 5:30 p.m. I'm going to open the meeting. We have a quorum of 3. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an information session for the proposed zoning bylaw. Thanks everybody for attending. I do have a couple of planning board business items I need to take care of before we start. From Susan Copeland, we have one seat that's open on the Ayer Planning Board for the spring elections. Nomination papers are due by Friday, March 4th at 12 o'clock p.m. So if anyone is interested in running for our open seat in the Ayer Planning Board, please come to the town clerk's office, pull out your papers, get your signatures, and get them in by Friday, March 4th, 2016 at 12 noon. Planning board members, I have received an email. You will find an email in your inbox about state ethics training. You have to go online, you have to take the course, print out the form, and file it with Carly at the Board of Selectmen's office, please. I happen to have the address for the site here. It's quick and easy, painless, and I appreciate you get that taken care of. Hey, Mark. Welcome.
Ladies, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Okay, great. We're passing around a sign-in sheet for those in attendance with contact. If you could provide us some contact information, that'd be great. That's coming around. Mark, you need to do some ethics training online like everyone else. All of us have to do it. If you could.
I've already done it once.
You've done it? Great.
We don't have a copy of it yet.
Okay, they don't have a copy in the Board of Selectmen's office, so you might have to do it again. And it's every 2 years, right? Every 2 years you have to do it again.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Then it was more than 2 years ago that I did it.
I don't know if you heard from Cindy. Cindy was going to, I think Jane's maybe sent you an email regarding your email address setup. I don't know if you got that yet.
I got a voicemail from you.
Yeah, I also sent you an email.
To which email?
To fermain@verizon.net.
Yeah.
What's
Different
your
address?
email?
Try it again.
Mark, M-A-R-K,
Okay.
F-E-R-M-A-N
Ferman.
at verizon.net.
So it's Furman, Mark Furman.
It's without the I-A in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just had Ferman, Ferman, and I sent it to ferman@verizon.net, and it bounced back. So then I put in the I, and it didn't bounce back. So I thought, okay, I'll send it tomorrow.
Okay.
The other Mark got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other Mark got it.
Probably my kid.
All right. And then you have to pull out nomination papers. I just handed that. Oh, here you go. You are appointed to the board, but you do need to run for in the spring election to make it permanent. All right. So
Okay.
that's by March 4th. Yeah,
Is that the same thing you just gave me?
Did I give you 2? I probably did. Yeah, I didn't hand you one back. All right. I have in front of me 3 invoices that are ready to be paid. They've been approved. I need planning board signatures on each one in order to get them paid.
Oh, those ones we approved last month?
Yes.
Okay.
So they've been approved. I just need signatures. So I'm going to pass them around. If you could please add your John Hancock to each, we can get those paid.
You don't have lines that we're supposed to sign?
I didn't write lines, sorry. I was in a rush. Without further ado, we are having a presentation today from Judy Barrett of RKG Associates. She was able to help us 3 years ago to draft what we have on hand for a proposed zoning bylaw. I've given staff an opportunity over the past month to take a look, refresh their memories on the document. I've received comments from departments and boards. For the most part, people would like to see more added to this bylaw. As I'm going to let Judy explain, we've been through a process. We have a finished document. We are working towards bringing it in front of a special town meeting before the summer. and closing out what the comprehensive plan of 2005 asked us to do in editing the bylaw. In creating a new update to the comprehensive plan, we do have a laundry list, a wish list of additional things we'd like to get out of our zoning bylaw. I have a long list, and people have been able to provide me with their own input. As I think Judy will explain, we are willing to open a new discussion as part of the discussion with the comprehensive plan update. What's next? But for this presentation, we're looking at the document we have on hand, what it is, how it compares to the old one, and why we needed it, and how we expect to move forward to a special town meeting in the spring.
Sure.
And I'm going to pass it on to you, Judy, and I'm going to run upstairs and see if I can get your PowerPoint real quick.
Okay, that's fine. But people have hard copies of it anyway?
They don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Well, let me give you a little background. By the time you get the PowerPoint, you will have already heard this. When we were hired to work with the planning board a few years ago, the intent was to take a bylaw that had been recodified, which means reorganized, restructured, reformatted, but not substantively changed, and begin to add to it things that would implement the master plan, or the comprehensive plan. And unfortunately, what happened when we started working with the board is that it became clear that the recodified bylaw needed some more recodification, that we couldn't simply build on what was there. So the scope kind of changed, and we did a whole what's called the zoning diagnostic, which is sort of looking at a zoning bylaw and kind of pulling it apart, looking at it, how it's written, how it's formatted, where there are inconsistencies or language problems or whatever, and tried to lay out for the planning board at the time, in order to begin to add things to this bylaw that are sort of policy changes, you need to fix the following things. Just the format of the bylaw itself was problematic. So the board said fine, and with that we set about creating kind of a new table of contents and a reorganization, first of the content that was there, and then adding some pieces that were kind of near and dear to the comprehensive plan committee at the time, which included things like the mixed-use transition district that had been discussed at least during the recodification period, but had not been added to the bylaw, and also looking at perhaps a more effective way to do cluster development, just some policy type pieces. But first we had to kind of clean up the bylaw, and that's what we did. So we were trying to use the comprehensive plan as closely as possible to figure out kind of what policy changes really were appropriate at the time. And I think that there was change on the planning board and so forth when we were working here, and I think that people just felt like they needed more time to think about the bylaw. So that's why it sort of didn't go forward at the time. But the board would now like to kind of resurrect that and take it to town meeting, and so we're back trying to help usher the bylaw through town meeting. I'm certainly willing to entertain some perhaps modest changes to what's already been drafted. It would be beyond my scope to sort of completely rewrite the whole thing. But I think it's kind of safe to say that the most significant substantive changes between what you have now and the proposed bylaw are the downtown business district, the mixed-use transition district along Park Street. The cluster bylaw is very different from what you have now. It was an attempt to sort of streamline it and make it clearer. There's an inclusionary zoning piece, which is a requirement for providing some affordable housing in projects that are kind of large enough to accommodate them. And then also just providing some standards, development standards for development in your non-residential districts. Things like just landscaping, open space, design. I mean, just things to sort of make sure that as development happens in those zones that it's attractive and becoming for the community and so forth. So those are kind of the substantive changes, I think. But for the most part, I think the rest of it is what you have. It just looks very different. And it needed to look very different because what you have right now actually has a number of problems in it. And I won't belabor that. I'm not sure you want me to kind of go through all the issues with your current zoning bylaw while we're in a public meeting, but suffice it to say there are issues with it. So I mean, that's really kind of a simple way of describing where we are. So I'm more than willing to entertain questions. If there are some minor tweaks that the board would like to consider to take this to town meeting, I'm happy to consider doing them. I can't do a wholesale rewrite of this bylaw for my current scope, but, you know, I'm perfectly willing to work with you, so. Do you want me to take questions? I think this is your meeting, so why don't you guys decide?
I'm not
You
sure
call
what
on
Jeremy-
people and I'll, yeah.
I recognize Steve Mullaney.
Thank you. Very simple question.
Sure.
Does this December 2015 third reading and public hearing version differ very much from the most recent one you had done about 3 years ago?
It should be exactly what was the hearing draft, because I haven't made any changes to this. I didn't want to make any changes to it until I got some direction from the board. So it should be what the hearing draft was.
Thank you.
Lori?
On the website, if you look at that, I didn't understand what the different links were for. So is this a hard copy of everything that's on the website?
I'm not very familiar with
Like,
this
it says
monopad, but we
something
could
like
probably get to the
third
website.
revision-
Do you mind?
reading.
Third reading, yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Okay, let me tell you about
What
the
do you need?
process. I do a lot of zoning work, and I've tried to, kind of, over the years, I've learned that the best way to structure these processes is to almost run them like the process the legislature uses to consider a bill. There's a first reading draft, which is really where the most time gets spent on, you know, the consultant puts out a draft and you're basically sticking your neck out. You're saying, here's what I think you want to do. And people beat up on it, and they suggest changes, and there are mistakes to be fixed. And so this is a second reading draft. The second
I
reading
don't know
draft
how.
addresses, to the extent possible, all of the comments that came from the first reading. The third reading draft is really the cleaned up. This incorporates all the comments that we could, that were either lawful or within scope or whatever. This is a substantially ready product to go. And the third reading draft, with only minor changes, typically becomes what's called the hearing draft.
Or the final draft?
The hearing draft is the draft that the planning board considers in the public hearing, and that is typically the one which is at town meeting is asked to act. So that's why it's saying third reading, hearing draft, because it came out of a process of multiple readings.
She
Okay. And those were the things that, the tweaks that were done several years ago. So the third reading is essentially the final version that was presented out. Okay. And in our handout, is there a map or something that shows, like, if we want to, what I need is, I need a summary of what the changes were. I don't know where people.
If you scroll up to the next, okay. Substantive changes. I do not have the map with me tonight, so I'll just have to walk you through what I can.
We do have, there are 10 copies of the map
Oh, all
up
right.
here. I can make more available on request. They're also on the website, the proposed map. If you go to the planning board website and then click on proposed zoning board bylaw. Does that answer the question? Yes.
Of the changes you made, how many of them are statutory? Or are there any?
There are a couple, the special permit granting authority for the Applicant Protection District. The version of the bylaw that I was given to work with names the Board of Health, but Chapter 48 only recognizes certain entities as having authority to grant special permits, which do not include the Board of Health.
I printed a
So
copy of
I
that.
changed that.
I don't know.
No, thank you. Yes. The rest of this really would be policy driven by the comprehensive plan.
So basically, there's no statutory or regulatory changes to be made over this time frame?
Are you which time frame are you referring to? From 2011 to now? Okay. The only statutory change that you may want to address would be the definition of a farm. Of a farm. The legislature has made some revisions to the definition of agriculture in order to recognize, as many of you may know, a farm on 5 or more acres is protected from zoning. You can't require a special permit for a farm on 5 or more acres. And the definition of a farm under state law is fairly broad. If you have a farm that's less than 5 acres, a community can regulate, can restrict what kind of agricultural activity takes place on a small farm, except a farm that is 2 or more acres, where the owner is producing enough, whatever, lettuce, to reach a certain dollar threshold in sales over the course of a year. That small farm enjoys the same protection as a 5-acre farm. That is the only significant change to the zoning act that has happened.
And those are contiguous acres, correct?
Yeah, I mean, although it can be separated by a road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the only changes in the zoning act. I mean, there have been other things that are being talked about in the world of zoning, but as for changes to the statute, it's that definition of agriculture.
So these proposed bylaws are up to date as far as regulations?
To the best of my
and
knowledge.
statutory-
To the best of my knowledge, I mean, I certainly think before we go too much farther here, the board is going to want to ask town council to take a look at this and make any suggestions that they want to make. If they think that there's something that needs to be addressed that's in case law that I'm not aware of, I'm pretty up on this stuff, but I'm not an attorney. So, you know, I think that town council should take a look at it, but in terms of the zoning act, you know, there are other things that have been going on. I mean, I just want to be clear, I want to be fair to your question. Medical marijuana has been sort of a big conversation piece in Massachusetts since 2011, and there have been some issues around what constitutes an exempt solar use. Those things are not addressed in here because they were not issues when this bylaw was drafted. And my scope right now is really to help you usher through town meeting, if you choose to take it there, this bylaw. I'll probably have some recommendations for you to think about for additional edits. But I want to just alert you that when this goes to town council to review, town council may say, you really should add something about medical marijuana, and they may want to recommend something.
Sure.
So just to be honest with everybody, there could be some edits coming from town council that are not coming from me because it's really beyond what I was asked to do, but those things are going on. But as for actual changes to the statute, it's fine.
Thank you.
All right, great.
No problem.
Can we move on? Did we go through?
Yeah, those are, I had actually mentioned those. I mean, those were the sort of major substantive changes. Most of the rest of this is just cleanup. And I'll take your question just a second if I could. I'll give you an example. The version of the bylaw that I was given to work with when we were hired in 2010, I guess it was, actually had 2 sets of use regulations in it. A table of use regulations at the end, and an outline version of use regulations in the body of the bylaw. And I said, well, you can't have 2 sets of use regulations because you're going to end up with a conflicting interpretation at some point as to what rules. So there were just fundamental formatting things that had to be addressed in order to then get to the point that you could even talk about adding a mixed-use transition district or anything else. The worst thing you can do in zoning is to add really cool stuff on top of a messed up bylaw. So you kind of need to get the messed up bylaw fixed first, and that, I think, was the first order of business.
Absolutely. I'll reiterate that, and I'll just, as far as the planning board is concerned, and up here we have Jen Gibbons and Mark Fermanian. They participated with Judy way back when this task was completed. We did try to bring it in front of a town meeting in 2012. The town meeting pretty much said that they didn't have enough time to review it. We're hoping this time around we will schedule another workshop. I put the documents on the town website, taking feedback as to the scheduling of our special town meeting. I at least want to make sure people understand what's in this document as proposed. Like I said, we do have a wish list. I have my own concepts of what I'd like to see in the air zoning bylaw. I don't, some of these things are very controversial. As Judy mentioned, town council might take a review and say we need to add some things. I know we're happy to revisit that. I do think this is a clean, for the most part, non-controversial bylaw that I'd like to see town meeting pass before we meet as a group in the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee and talk about what else we'd like to add to the zoning bylaw. What else might be an overlay district allowing medical marijuana use. maybe not. We do need, we're looking at a possible second installation of a solar voltaic energy facility in Ayer. There have been a lot of questions as to, is that an exempt use, or do we kind of, fiddle with our existing use table and fit it in? It's confusing, and maybe we should clarify that in our zoning bylaw. Is this the document right now in front of you that does that? The answer is no. Should we have a document in the future that incorporates these things? Maybe, but that's not this board's task at hand. Our intention, hopefully, is to get this cleaned up baseline of a zoning bylaw in front of a town meeting this year, get it approved so that we can move forward and add the parts that we really like to see. So that is what we're trying to do. The documents are available, like I said, on the town website. The town website is new and improved, looks very good. You can easily find the planning board page. Yes, absolutely. It looks very nice. Thanks to Cindy Knox and everyone else who did a lot of work on that website. It looks great. And I'm available via email if you have any questions. I would like to open the floor to questions. Let's, we have our asset here, Judy Barrett, and hopefully she can answer any questions you have about the document that's online and maybe the differences between the old and the new. Carolyn?
You've listed there's a list there of the substantive changes. Can you go over, well, the first two are pretty clear, but how the parking requirements change and how the cluster development changed, the other ones, how they've changed?
Well, I can certainly talk to you about the parking. You have right now, as I recall, I'm embarrassed to tell you, I don't have your current bylaw right here. I have the one I worked on. But I do remember looking at the parking standards and thinking, geez,
they're dated. Yeah, they were definitely dated.
And so when you're trying to do a downtown district, this is probably a really good segue. When you're trying to implement a downtown district, which was one of the things the board wanted to do, you have to look at parking. Because the kind of parking requirements that you can and might want to impose on a suburban location don't belong in a downtown district. You can choke downtown development by requiring excessive parking. So the parking standards end up being relaxed for the downtown area because you want to encourage redevelopment. You don't want to stymie it. But the other things too that you do when you're thinking about a central business district is you pay attention to, well, this isn't just an environment for cars. And so what have we done as Americans? We've done an absolutely marvelous job of designing communities that are car slaves. But you don't want a downtown district to be a car slave. So thinking about things like you got to have some bicycle parking. And actually, if you have some bicycle parking, you can probably even get a waiver from some vehicular parking because you want people to be able to access your downtown through means other than or in addition to a car. So there are pretty clear standards, I think, now for pedestrian accommodation and what that means, and bicycle accommodation. And the bicycle accommodation provisions affect both the downtown district as well as like multifamily development. You would want to make sure that there's provisions for parking other than cars. So that's all new content, but it's informed by the town's desire to have a functional downtown business district, and it's also informed by just best practices in planning. The cluster bylaw, I think what you have right now is the special permit.
Yes.
Pain in the neck.
Yes, absolutely.
Thinking about cluster zoning has changed a lot in the last really 10 years, I think. And to some extent, the thinking on cluster zoning really changed in 2008 and 2009 when the appeals court, I just want to get to my section here.
Could you just,
this was labor of love. Yes,
for the benefit, I think our old bylaw called it a cluster zoning bylaw. The new one calls it
open space
Open space.
residential development.
the language has even changed, I
Yeah.
believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So in 2008, the Massachusetts Appeals Court struck down a bylaw in Westwood that required a special permit for any subdivision of more than 5 lots, more than 6 lots. And the intent of the bylaw was to compel residential developers to do cluster design, to do open space residential design. And the appeals court said, that's a really nice and noble idea, but you can't make someone who is doing a subdivision, you can't sort of impose requirements on a special permit requirement on a subdivision. A subdivision is, if you meet the requirements, then you have your development as a matter of right. So when the Westwood bylaw was thrown out, about 50 other bylaws automatically disappeared, and that sort of triggered a big conversation in Massachusetts about, well, what are we trying to do with cluster development, and how do we get communities to, or how do we get developers to do it, and how do we give communities tools that they can really encourage cluster development without running afoul of the appeals court decision in the Westwood case. And we had quite a bit of conversation about cluster here, which led to the provision that's in the proposed zoning, which is a voluntary special permit. It's essentially saying, here's a formula for computing what your yield would be, how many lots you can have. And you don't have to go through a big long process to prove what your underlying development right would be. It's a formula. And we want the open space badly enough that will go with the formula, which, just so everybody knows, does have the potential to mean someone might get an extra lot or two. But if you want the open space, the question is, who cares? So there's a policy decision here. If you don't want the open space, then just do standard subdivisions and don't worry about it. But if you want the open space, don't make it impossible for the developer to give it to you, is kind of the logic. Now, since 2011, when we worked on this, there's another kind of version now of cluster that's out there, which is essentially a mandatory cluster like Westwood tried to do, but it doesn't require a special permit. It's essentially a set of standards in your zoning that a developer must meet in filing a subdivision plan. And so you file a subdivision plan, and you must provide open space, and the requirements are fairly prescriptive because they have to be. Because now you're saying, if you meet all these requirements by right, then you get your subdivision approved. And if you don't want to do that, well, then you can apply for a special permit and be exempt from the cluster bylaw. That's a new version that's out there. But that thinking was in play when we were working on this bylaw, but the model hadn't really. There was a group of us that worked on this, and it wasn't ready for prime time in 2011. So what the planning board really the planning board didn't want to beat people over the head and wanted to have a cluster provision, but didn't want to make it something that was too onerous. And so that's how we ended up with this. But this is legal, so.
Yes, and I'll follow up there now. The cluster bylaw that's on the books now, to my knowledge, no one has ever used. We've never had an application. It's too complicated. It doesn't serve our purposes. As a planning board, and Jen and Mark can correct me, I think that, and our direction currently is open space is good. We don't have a lot of it left. We'd like to preserve what we can. And if we can give developers a little bit of extra density in exchange for conserving some open space, I think that's what we wanted to work into the zoning bylaw, and I think the version that we are proposing does that, I think, to put it simply. Again, I can read through it. There is a formula. It can be a complicated read. I have passed it in front of developers. Rick Roper's not here tonight, one of our members, but he looked at it. He agreed that the new one's better than the old one. And I've talked to other engineers in town and developers, and they all agree that the language proposed in the proposed bylaw it would make them more likely to work with us. Now, the alternative is special permit. People can still go the 40B route if they're really looking to shove some density down our throats. That's always a possibility. We are trying to give developers another option, and I kind of think this new document does that without too much pain. We hope. Yeah. We hope. And again, this document's been out there for 3 years. It's on the website. People want to read it. It can take a couple of reads to get through, but I haven't heard. I've got no negative feedback on this proposed bylaw at all. I have had people say, "What about this? I wish we had this. Let's add more to it." And I'm eager to have at it. after we get this baseline in place. So that's kind of the direction we're going in.
Well, and I do think too that if you want to add to this, which I'm sure you probably will in the
Yes.
future, at least now you have a format that
Yes.
when you add to it, it won't disrupt the rest of the bylaw. It's an amendable format.
Right, and we.
Numbering is key.
And again, and I'll thank you for mentioning that. I mean, we've had major problems in the past with new paragraphs, new sections added, references disappear, and they no longer link to the correct document, and it becomes kind of a nightmare when you're actually applying for a subdivision, or if you are a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals trying to figure out what's allowed and what's not, and it can become really confusing. So I really think this revision will help a lot of those problems and help us move forward.
I hope so.
Could you, okay, we talked about cluster zoning. Inclusionary zoning, what does that mean?
Inclusionary zoning is well, this was the other thing that came up, speaking of 40B.
Right.
There was some concern in the community. Actually, we heard a little bit of this when the comprehensive plan was going on, and then it came up with the board as well, about, what can we do to do a better job of managing Chapter 40B. And I will tell you now what I said then. The best way to manage Chapter 40B is to get to 10% and make it go away.
Right.
But certainly, what every community that has gotten to 10% knows is that staying there can be a challenge
Yes.
as well. And so what we tried to do in this bylaw was include a provision that would allow for the inclusion of affordable units in new development as it occurs here. And so this is what section 10.3 is all about. It's a provision for including affordable housing. It's sort of 1 of every 5 units is basically the formula that's in here. And just so you know what affordability means in this context, because this is, there's not a whole lot of density, associated with this. It's basically you got to do it. The way the affordability is figured is your community, like every other community in the Commonwealth, is assigned by the federal government to some economic statistical area, and in your case, it's Boston. So the regional income limits that apply in the Boston metropolitan area determine kind of how affordability is defined in Ayer. I know it's a huge issue in a lot of towns. On the outline, on the periphery of these metro areas, the income limits that make sense in Boston don't really make sense in Ayer, but the reality is that what often happens is that developers are adjusting the prices accordingly anyway. In any case, the definition is 80% of the median income. So if you think about I hate to use the family of 4 because those almost don't exist anymore, but we still talk about families of 4 in this country like they're just normal. The family of 4, 80% number is 65,000, so rounded number, just say 65,000. So a family of 4 with income of $65,000 would be, in theory, eligible to purchase an affordable unit in your town. Now, the pricing can be lower than that, but that is what the 80% number means.
I'm sorry, and this applies to rentals as well as it's similar?
Yeah, I mean, it's affordability is defined the same way, but often in rental projects, you'll see more of a mix. And I've actually done some of this in some communities that really, where a lot of rental housing, where the rental demand was really high, that sometimes mixing the income limits can be very advantageous. If you want to create units for people who really are low income, then you allow some of the other affordable units to be perhaps at median instead of 80%. And maybe those units don't count on the subsidized housing inventory, but you end up getting some deeply affordable housing where you need it. So there's some play there that the board can work with. But it's essentially, inclusionary zoning is more of a tool for keeping a status quo than somehow getting to 10%. It's not what it's for.
Right.
But that's why it's here.
Right. But again, as far as a policy direction, and again, I think the planning board 4 years ago decided that housing and affordability is an issue that is important as a policy. And we wanted to build into the zoning bylaw a mechanism for making sure we have a housing stock that's affordable to people that work in town, to people who work with the fire department, people who work with the police department. We'd like employees in town to be able to live in town, and I think that was the policy direction. And I think this new bylaw, without being too demanding or burdensome helps
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a modest density bonus in here. I mean, you have to do something, you can't just take units away from the developer. So the formula that's in here is for every affordable unit that you provide, you can do, the planning board can allow up to 2 market rate units as a cost offset is what that's called. So, that's a modest,
Right.
it's less than what you get with 40B, but it's probably manageable in this environment, so.
Again, another tool for developers, builders to use to help us in the permitting process to get towards our goal of affordable housing.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that sort of policy framework for this bylaw was not to stop development in Ayer. It really was around getting better quality development, and it was around, as development occurs, getting some community needs addressed. So, the quality issues are things like making sure if you have a central business district that people can actually park a bike somewhere. And also liberating the use mix, so you could have upper story housing if you wanted. Whereas in residential development in the sort of neighborhood context, it's around, if you're going to build, that's great, help us build a better town, but let's also make sure that there's some provision for affordability as we go forth. So it's not a stop growth bylaw, it's really a qualitative one, I think is maybe the way I would
I think
say
so.
where the board was, certainly at the
That
time.
makes sense. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think, again, I wasn't on the board. I know there were a lot of meetings. We did have workshops. We did.
We sure did.
We put a lot of work into, as a board, putting this document together. I think, and Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think maybe grander ideas came up at the time, and maybe more progressive ideas. But this is a document we came up with, and I think it's solid. It's not going to put any builders out of business, but I think it helps us as a town meet a lot of our goals, or at least start getting us in that direction. Again, I think you've spoken, the question I think was from Sam about statutory changes that may be taking place in this. One of them was...
Well, the farm is the big statutory
Yes.
change, but the other conversation that's been out there really is around the licensing and so forth of medical marijuana facilities. And so communities everywhere have been trying to deal with in zoning, where would you want to provide for a medical marijuana facility if if one was to come to your community? And that is
We have
all.
one.
If another one came.
If another one came, you already have one.
It's about 100 yards down the
No, I
road.
don't have to even worry about this. This is all done. I don't have to worry about this after this conversation. You've already got one.
Yes.
Well, there's a number 2 one coming in.
Well, all I was saying was that town council may want to suggest some rules around that. That conversation postdates the work on this, so
Yes.
when you see the proposed version for town meeting, there may be some content added to this because of the conversation with town council. I can't comment on that. I just want you to know so you don't feel later like I deceived you. It's like there could be some changes to this based on conversation with town council.
Yes. And again, it is important to note that again, they are open, compassionate
I believe-
care
I believe
is
so.
our
I don't
dispensary.
use them, but I believe they open. I
didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I've seen people go in and out of the building, that's all I can say.
So yeah, as a town, I think we dealt with the medical marijuana issue without having any zoning changes.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have. I mean,
And
we're not
a
the
lot of
only
people
ones.
have. That's why I'm kind of comfortable with the way we dealt with it and the way our bylaw reads. Also, some towns do overlay districts, just another example, for solar power and solar installations.
Yes, they do.
And I've talked to, we have one under National Grid is installing a facility over here on Park Street above, can't even see it, but that's approved. We went through a pretty lengthy process. We fit it into our zoning bylaw under a special permit with the ZBA. That worked. They had to jump through a lot of hoops. They were happy to do so. And they're under construction now. I assume they'll be done pretty soon. I've seen construction vehicles.
Was that permitted as an industrial use?
It was permitted as a, yes, it was in an R2, but it was permitted as a special permit for a utility yard without.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, right.
And that worked. That worked for us. Sam remembers that maybe.
Yeah, but I have a question for you though. If you remember back, there was an email, what, a week or 2 ago?
Yes.
And it substantially said that the solar farms don't fall under...
Section 3 of chapter 48.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
So,
yes, good
would
question.
we include that into this for what?
You know, there's been, the zoning act currently provides for an exception for
True.
solar uses. And there's a great debate about what the legislature's intent was. Was this for solar panels on the on the roof of a house?
Yes.
Was it for solar farms? There's great debate about this. And I think that what would probably make sense, because again, this debate is sort of something that hit the fan after this was done, but it is something I'm aware of. I think we should probably just ask Copeland and Page if they have something that they want the town to add to the bylaw. But you should know, it's an unsettled question.
It's a pretty broad brush.
It is a broad brush, and it's an unsettled legal question as to whether the solar farm is as protected as the solar panels on your roof. It's an unsettled question. And attorneys have very, very strong opinions about it, but,
And Arizona's testing it right now.
pardon me?
It's being tested in Arizona
Yeah.
from an economic standpoint.
Oh, really?
Well, it's the negative impact upon the delivery of energy.
Okay. Oh, interesting. That's an
The
interesting.
federal laws want it. It's a good idea, but it's having a negative impact on the other infrastructures in place. And they're not capable of actually investing in the infrastructure to maintain safety and delivery. So I have a feeling the pendulum's swinging, and it's going to swing past. And we don't know where legislation's going to take it. I mean,
Right, absolutely. I
No idea.
think policy-wise, the Commonwealth has encouraged this development. They recently increased their net metering cap to encourage private development in this field. We've been lucky, the town of Ayer, I think, as well. We have our marching orders, so to speak. We do, we've got one facility under construction. We went into a net metering deal for solar. We're pro-solar energy in the town of Ayer, I believe, it's safe to say. And we've been lucky. The one facility under construction now by National Grid, neighbors did not have any problem with the facility. They, I had no complaints, and we went through the public hearing process. I also think the one that's in play currently, we're going to put it in front of neighbors. They'll have an opportunity to give me feedback. But again, it's in a spot that's not to be developed for housing. It's not to be seen from any roads or from backyards. It's a good spot. I do think we've been lucky in the town of Ayer. We haven't had one of these really loud, in the middle of Main Street facilities come to us and say we'd like to put these. So we've been lucky, and I think we've been able to manage it from a policy standpoint, from a town government standpoint, without going the zoning bylaw route. And also you get, on the other end, we could always have an overlay district. We could say only solar panels can go in this part of town. That can be really restrictive, and that can cause problems to developers that, maybe that's not for our town to say, for a zoning bylaw to say.
And that authority too is even an unsettled question.
Right, absolutely, and that could raise some legal issues. So it's definitely, it is something that's up for discussion, but we have handled it through the ZBA, through the planning board. We've been able to handle it as it's come up, so I'm not really sure the bylaw needs, oops, thank you.
we almost got reset there without knowing.
All right.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to is solar panels on the houses. The economics have changed so dramatically, and now solar farms make sense. And I'm starting to see communities wanting to put solar in to run pumping stations and stuff, water pumping stations. I mean,
Sure.
large kind of industrial uses
Yeah.
of solar,
Oh,
which
yeah.
make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But they have impact.
I had a discussion with the building department today, specifically about the changes to the signage bylaw. I don't know if we had a lot of discussion about the old signage and the new signage bylaw.
Yeah.
A lot of it was, I think, in response to comments from the building department, from the ZBA, just questions that had come up about variances and whatnot. I have a list of questions. I'll forward them to you.
Okay.
But I do think we do have a new signage bylaw. It makes a great number of changes. I think they're all helpful changes. But we are open, that can be tweaked a little bit. There's
Sure.
a chart if we want to
Yes.
change some things. I know I talked to Charlie, and I do have your list. So I'll forward that to you, and we can have a discussion about, because things have come up recently about enforcement And I think we've got some new information, maybe we can take a look at that.
That would be fine, sure. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is make it harder for you. Same time, give you a sign by law that has some qualitative standards to it. so.
Absolutely. That's a useful tool, a very useful tool, and we want to get that right, hopefully. Does the board have any other specific questions about the bylaw? That's great. In the audience, do we have any more questions? Carly?
I just wanted some information, I guess, on, we talked about the home permits, that we get a lot of foot traffic and people who have a home office.
A home occupation?
Yeah, but then if you're working from home, it's like very gray, so.
Do you mean like telecommuters?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But then, you know, if someone's gonna be having a business in their house, but they have no customers, or, it's just very gray, and, you know, it's like we have to charge $100, or they have to go through the special permitting process, and they're basically just working from a laptop.
Yep.
So I'm curious about that.
Let me, I think this did come up, and
Yes, the existing bylaw had a very confusing definition, so I think we did change some definitions.
okay. The proposed home occupation bylaw basically sets some standards for what can be done as of right. Provides an opportunity to go to the Board of Appeals for a special permit, and I'll give you an example. By right, you can have a home-based business with one non-resident employee. If you want to have two non-resident employees, then you need to go to the Board of Appeals and request a special permit. It's a way of trying to sort of manage the impact of the use on the surrounding neighborhood. So this bylaw doesn't say if you're a doctor or an attorney, you can have a home occupation, but if you're a tradesperson, you can't. It regulates impact, not type of business, okay, which is pretty much the way this is done now. A home occupation is different from a telecommuter. The telecommuter is someone who works for a company in, I'll just throw out names, Chelmsford, and a day or two a week gets to work at home. But they're not running a home business. They're working for a business that's located elsewhere.
Sure.
So home occupation doesn't regulate telecommuter. A home occupation bylaw just doesn't. If someone was working for a business in Chelmsford and seeing Chelmsford's customers at their home in Ayer,
Right.
that would be a different issue, but that's not really what the telecommuter does. So this is really around, I'm using my home in part for an employment, or, you know, a work that I'm doing for gain, for myself as a, you know, as a
So
resident.
we get a ton, and it's because of the Affordable Care Act, for insurance purposes, they're mandated to have a DBA from the town clerk's office.
Right.
So
If
they-
I'm a home occupation, yes.
Right, so they come in and they're like, well, we sell soap on the internet, like, we
That's a home
buy it.
occupation.
Right, okay, it's just like, so, they're like, we literally have a laptop and, you know.
But see, you know, a lot of people who are doing home occupation, selling soap on the internet, also have a full-time job somewhere else.
Right.
So for Affordable Care Act purposes, they may not even, they may need to have a DBA certificate, but really what they need to show is I've got insurance.
Right.
If I'm a telecommuter working for a company in Chelmsford, my insurance is coming from them, and I don't need to worry about that anyway. But it's a good, I hadn't thought about that, but that's an interesting point.
Yeah, and we have, just as an example,
Yeah.
like an appraiser.
Yeah,
She's like, well, I work for a company, but I need this certificate, and it's just very unclear right now how we do it.
and so sometimes you work for a company, but
Right.
you are a sole proprietor,
Right.
not an employee.
So, I mean, from doing zoning right now, you know, administrative support, I'd like to see some more definition on kind of coming through the door.
So I guess the question is this something that needs to be handled in the zoning bylaw, or is this something that needs to be handled on a regulatory level for the planning board, in the zoning board of appeals, or in the board of selectmen's office? I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Right now, the current bylaws, everything is under a special permit
Yes.
because there are so many of them. There was a regulation change that come in and pay $100, and then in 5 years, we're gonna check back if you're still in business. Then you have to go through the whole process and notify butters in public hearing.
That's not what this is.
Yeah, because that still seems very
if you have a home occupation that no one is even gonna know you're there during the day,
Right.
there is no, I gotta put my planner hat on now, there's no rational reason to make somebody go through a special permit process
Right.
to work on a laptop at home during the day, and there's no customer traffic, there's no nothing going on, no one even knows they're home.
Right.
That's a little different from
So,
a dance instructor, you know, who's got students coming and going,
Or an accountant,
or
or someone who comes.
someone who has customers
tax
coming.
planner,
It's a
an
different
accountant,
use, it's a different
vet.
impact.
yeah.
So selling soap on the internet to me, they're not making it in their house, they buy it and then sell it. Who would know
Possibly.
that?
Now, I mean, if they're doing that for a living, that is an occupation that's being
Right.
conducted from home.
Mhm.
But to say that that needs a special permit strikes me as rather bizarre. You just say, fine, if you meet these requirements, no traffic, no more than one non-resident employee, no change to the outside of the house, no sign, no, like, you're invisible.
Right.
Who knows you're there?
And-
So what's the impact that you're trying to mitigate? But once you start having business activity that's visible, then there is a potential impact, and then I think you do want, you know, a higher oversight.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the methodology behind it was because someone was in fact working from home. I don't know whether they were an artist or illustrator, whatever the case was.
Sure.
The neighbor knew he was running the business from the home. The neighbor complained about a business in a residential area. That's what propagated the whole plan.
And it could be, you
So
know.
that's where the special permit came from.
Sure.
Because the building inspector said, well, you can't do that without a special permit. So now you're back in the loop again. So how do you work around that?
Well, my recommendation is that in your zoning, you say,
Mm.
a home occupation that meets the following requirements is allowed as a right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, no more than one non-resident employee, no change to the exterior of the building,
no sign.
you know, no traffic in
I
excess of
thought
that,
that
which is,
the existing bylaw we had was pretty specific about what you could or couldn't do.
well,
It seemed like the proposed had lightened it up somewhat.
the proposed is around impacts.
Yeah.
That's really the way home occupation zoning is written now. It's around impacts, not the type of use.
Right.
You can
But
have,
they are tied together.
they
Well,
can be, but.
It's like day trading.
Mhm.
You can sit on you can make an occupation of day trading all day long.
Yeah,
And
Sure.
like you say, there's no impact on the residents.
so why would you need a special permit?
Right.
You shouldn't have to have one. So this is talking about impacts. Whether you're a doctor, a dentist, a tradesperson, you know, selling soap on the internet, you know, the issue is what's the impact, what's the visible evidence of your activity on your neighborhood? And if it's invisible, this is saying it's a matter of right. If it's visible to a point beyond that which would normally be associated with a residential neighborhood, then you need to get a special permit.
Because currently, technically, the day trader would need a special permit and notify the abutters and all. That's
Right, that's
ridiculous to me.
It is, but by the same token, if the
If a neighbor-
If the housing, if the zone was residential and it didn't permit,
Well, this would. This would say, if you have an essentially invisible home occupation, then you are allowed to carry that out in your home.
in a residential area.
In a residential, yeah, because it's a residential use, it's an
So that-
accessory to a
that
residence.
cuts the whole middleman right out.
Right, so if it's essentially invisible, I don't know how else to say it, you know,
I get it.
something with no measurable impact. Now, if a neighbor complains, then the building inspector should go out and look and say, well, is the activity in this house having an impact beyond that which is allowed as of right? And if it is, then the building inspector should issue an enforcement order, and the person should have to come to the Board of Appeals and get a special permit. Or a building inspector goes issue an enforcement order, and the owner says, you're full of bunk, I'm gonna go appeal to the Board of Appeals and try to get this order vacated. I mean, those become the options, but the building inspector, as with any other potential zoning violation, the building inspector looks into it and has to make a determination. Is there a violation or not? If there's no sign, there's no change to the exterior, there's, you know, no traffic, there's one person in the house, no employees, the building inspector, by virtue of this bylaw, would be able to say there is no zoning violation here. But if there's evidence that there is, then the building inspector would issue an enforcement order.
Okay.
And then it ends up in your lap. So.
Great. the, I'm going to look at the language myself. I think I understand the issue. It's clear now. And I think we have addressed it in the proposed bylaw. I think it was a big deal when we came up with the draft. And I think it has been addressed. But if we need to tweak the language a little bit to make it more specific, I think we plenty of room to do that before we send this thing to public hearing. So I'll take a look at that. You did send me a list, and I think we've covered just about. Medical marijuana, I think was on your list. The solar installations, we discussed
Yeah,
that.
solar.
I would like to address the question, I think we touched on it earlier, the question of special permitting that has to go through the Board of Health. Now,
Well, yeah, that was one of the issues that we had to raise in the zoning
I think
review.
he was on, I think Jeremy was on the.
I might have been upstairs.
Jeremy had
Oh,
gone
fine,
upstairs when
yeah.
we talked about it.
I know that's come up, and my understanding then is for the Aquifer Protection District, we were sending to the Board of Health a request for a special permit. And my understanding is that's not a provision that is allowed under the zoning
The
act?
zoning act specifies what entities can grant a special permit.
I think it's actually a little bit more subtle than that. The Board of Health has a regulation.
Yeah.
It's not a bylaw
Okay.
or a zoning
Okay.
ordinance. So wherever it lands, it lands.
Okay.
I just
Sure.
don't want us to have a regulation that says we're the SPGA and you're the zoning bylaw that says, no, we are the SPGA.
Well, the zoning bylaw
We gotta
right
resolve it
now,
one way or the other.
right now, the zoning bylaw says the special permit granting authority is the Board of Health.
Right.
That's what the zoning bylaw says. It's in the definitions in the Aquifer Protection District. So, I mean, that's what I was given to work with, so I can only comment on what I received.
And your comment is that's problematic because
not
it's
allowed
not
in
allowed.
the-
It's not allowed.
yeah.
Right. So it is
And
a.
maybe this is a matter for town council.
Yeah, it
Yes,
probably is.
absolutely.
40A reads to me that the special permit granting authority shall include,
Mhm.
not to the exclusion of all others. And it specifically refers to zoning ordinances and bylaws, not regulations.
But this is
Adopted
chapter
by a
40A, so it's only zoning.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I don't know if this belongs as a zoning.
I don't know that it does, I'm simply, let me just try to be
Yeah,
clear. You're-
no, I know. My issue is not with you. It's just that
I was handed a zoning bylaw to review that includes an aquifer protection district
yeah.
that provides for special permits. And in the zoning bylaw version of the aquifer protection
Yep.
district, the special permit granting authority is the Board of Health. My
Agreed.
comment was that's not consistent with the statute. If there's a dispute about it, by all means, we can talk to town council, but all I can do is say, here's what the statute says is an allowable special permit granting authority.
Yeah, it just seems to me that we don't need it in a zoning bylaw and a Board of Health regulation.
Well, but if
Which
there's
one
a-
is the right one to go?
If the aquifer protection district is a zoning district, which it is, it's a zoning district.
It's an overlay
That's a zoning
district, but we have the issue of the Board of Health
That's separate.
regulation.
That, the Board of Health has independent regulatory authority. All I'm commenting on is a zoning district.
I
And a
understand.
zoning district that has a mapped identity and regulations that provide for a special permit, I just have to say to the town, the special permit granting authority can't be the Board of Health. But you've got a zoning bylaw that provides for special permits, so somebody has to be the granting authority.
Right. So I'm just saying, as the planning board, please hear us, that
Yeah.
you
Sure.
don't need these two competing
Right.
Yeah.
documents.
And
Let's just
I
make it
hear
one
that, and we're
document.
going to send that to town council, just to get a clarification.
Sure, that's
All right.
fine. If town council says, you know what, it's so old, don't disturb it, I'm not gonna argue about it. All I can tell you is what the zoning act says. So
Yes, absolutely.
that's fine.
All right.
And I have one other question
Right.
about that. It
Sure.
actually has to do with the definitions.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if the definition of impervious came into this document specifically because of the aquifer protection, or if that shows up in other sections of the bylaw. But this definition of impervious is not the same as the one in the aquifer protection. I'm on page 9. It's under definitions, impervious surface. And I say this actually more as a resident who lives in the Aquifer Protection District than a Board of Health member. So I'm putting on my resident hat now. Under the Board of Health regulation, we say that an impervious surface is just a material or a structure that does not allow precipitation of surface water to penetrate directly into the soil.
Yes.
The definition that's in here specifically says that semi-pervious and semi-porous paving materials are considered impervious.
Because that's been DEP policy for stormwater.
That's what I'm wondering, is there
stormwater purposes.
it's for stormwater.
DEP, stormwater, this is another evolving thing with DEP, but I mean, for stormwater calculations, semi-pervious materials are not, they're not given the credit for being as permeable as they are, because they clog up or whatever.
So I wonder if that
It's not-
definition then should be clearer with respect to, are we talking about stormwater or are we talking about
It's a fair question,
aquifer
it's a fair
district?
question.
Yeah.
And as a resident,
Yeah.
that really restricts what
No,
you can do
I
with
hear
your
you.
property.
I hear you. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. And I can just tell you where my head was. I was thinking about stormwater. I absolutely, that's where my head was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can take that up. That's.
Yep, we'll discuss that, sure. All right, great.
What's been going on lately with all the development? Stormwater creates nuisance.
Pardon me?
Stormwater creates nuisance.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and I don't think the whole aquifer protection district is the same, but in the area where I am, which is close to Grove Pond, that soil is so sandy. It soaks in the second it hits the ground. So this is like soil quality issue.
But that would be penetrable by surface water.
Pardon me?
If it's sandy soil, then it allows water to percolate.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would not be necessarily.
No, but what I'm saying is, should I want to expand, I have a pre-existing area with paving stones on my property. If I want to expand that area,
Okay.
I would be willing to pay for semi-permeable paving blocks. And I think the soil there is so sandy that, I think there are these situations, at least in my area of the aquifer district.
Let me do a search for this through the bylaw
Okay.
and just see
Great.
if I can reconstruct my thinking here, but I am almost
I gotcha.
positive, looking at that language, that it was very much stormwater that was on my mind, and yet, I think we even talked at the time, this is one of these things where like I'm getting old, right, so I'm forgetting things, but
Yeah,
I think that, it's what happens, guys, I'm sorry. Does your town have a stormwater bylaw now?
Yes, we do.
You do.
We did not have one 4 years ago.
Okay.
We have, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I think it's been implemented since 2011, the stormwater bylaw.
It was around that same.
Around the same time we were
before
discussing
I-
it.
Okay, then you know what I definitely need to do is look at the stormwater
And the
bylaw
stormwater,
and
and
make sure.
I had some issues with stormwater comments on
Let me
it.
do it. That's a consistency check. Last thing we want to do
It-
is take a vote.
And the stormwater bylaw probably needs to be looked at
Again,
also, because it's probably not as up to date.
Is it the state model?
I don't know.
Well, at the very least, I will take a look at this and what you have and make sure that they're not working across purposes.
But it's interesting, because it's a stormwater discussion as opposed to water entering the aquifer that we can use.
Yeah.
It's a very different conversation
No,
altogether.
I know it is, but I'm almost positive that's where my head was
I
when I wrote that
wouldn't surprise me. I
down.
mean, that's where development's been going.
I believe.
Roof and impervious surface around buildings.
On that note, Lori?
If you wouldn't mind, it would be really helpful for me to finish going through the bullets that are throughout the, I think you missed one.
I think other special granting authority, I think if you want to touch landscaping.
Oh, yeah. One of the things I said, let me find the section. Way back when we were working on the, it's 9.3. When we were working on the master plan, I said to the planning board at the time, and anybody else who would listen, one of the things you need to give yourself permission to do as a town, you might remember this, is to insist on better quality. And it was striking to me in reading your zoning bylaw, the current one, that there were virtually no standards in it for site design for commercial projects. Just no expectations around landscaping, no expectations around pedestrian design. I mean, just nothing. And so that landscaping and open space standards for non-residential development is simply a way to say, when you come in for a site plan with the planning board, certain things you gotta show.
Trees.
What is, tree plantings, you know. You have to have, clearly demarcated and safe passageway for pedestrians between parking areas and buildings. You have to have lighting that makes sense, so you don't have gigantic tall lighting on your commercial site. It should be, no taller than, I think, maybe 15 feet is what I probably said in here. You can be shorter than that if somebody pushed me. But just to have some guidelines for when you submit a site plan for site plan review, you need to provide for the following things. So you actually get some decent quality projects in this town, which you are entitled to get. Everybody else around you is getting them, why shouldn't you? So that's what that other piece was. It was in creating some design review standards,
Right.
if you will. And I don't mean so much architectural, but just the site plan, the quality of the site plan.
And I would add that we do get some quality installations to projects in this town, but it makes it harder for the planning board when they have a site plan review process to dictate to a developer, we want you to do this, 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 and this, when we don't have the guidelines already in the zoning bylaw. So I think that's another big improvement. Providing the guidelines ahead of time to developers, I think it's going to be really helpful.
You know, the stormwater bylaw must have been in the offing back then, because I'm
was.
looking at the commercial standards now, and one of the last one was that the development will comply with the town of Ayer stormwater bylaw. So I think it was kind of coming at this time. when
Yeah, there was
acknowledged
some stuff, but there's,
Yeah.
there's also, I noted in my comments, there's some discrepancies between like the EPA requirements.
Right.
that- Right.
And we did get a list of comments from Mark, which
Yes.
are part of our input package.
Yeah.
We have received a response. I talked to the building department today. We got a response from fire and from police indicating no major comments or issues with the proposed bylaw. Yes, Mark?
I had one comment that police and fire might, or a question that police and fire might also be concerned about is
Sure.
the wireless communication overlay district. We all have wireless communication and we're adding more and more every day. And, we were looking at some modifications to the police radio where we'd be putting up a number of antennas in a number of sites throughout town. So I didn't know if municipal uses could be exempted.
They can be. They can be. And actually, I would recommend that because I happen to have the thankless job of serving on the Board of Appeals in my own town. And we got caught recently in a situation where the public safety people needed to put up a new tower and the height exceeded the height limit. And I live in one of these towns that thinks that any change is absolutely draconian and horrible. So we were put in a terrible position of having to act on a variance. And variance in Massachusetts law is very difficult to grant. But they clearly needed a public safety tower and it exceeded the height that was in the bylaw. And the bylaw didn't recognize municipal public safety facilities, it only recognized church steeples. So that didn't help the police department very much. So, you would be smart to give yourselves permission to exempt municipal uses so you can take care of your public services. So if the board doesn't mind, I'd certainly be happy
Yeah, I don't think we...
to add that.
And you would limit that to public safety, and you would have municipal uses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I might say municipal public safety purposes.
I'm just curious, I think municipal use is fine.
Because we're doing stuff with,
I wouldn't-
with
Yeah.
Say municipal
our
use.
telemetry.
Yeah, telemetry, I was thinking
systems and our
Sewer pump station would be, yeah.
Municipal
I would
use.
say municipal use, yeah.
which is fine.
I wouldn't go as, Mark mentioned fire and police,
Yeah.
but there are other
Sure.
uses that are quite
No, I
necessary
think
and
that's
helpful.
fine. I think that's fine.
We've also had some questions, a similar question about signage. I think we should allow us some flexibility as a municipality to, if necessary, not abide by the signage.
I should look at that, because I actually thought that I had.
I think you might have, it's just
Yeah,
a
let me
question.
check that, because really, I don't believe in tying the hands of the town. The town has a hard enough
Right.
job as it is, so. And a lot of the stuff ends up requiring some kind of town meeting approval anyway, so, you know, you need an appropriation to put up a tower for public safety, somebody's gonna pay for it, so.
It adds
there's
cost.
usually a way to-
It adds cost.
Yeah, I know, so it's, let me look and see. I thought I had exempted municipal signs. If I didn't, I will. If that's what the board would like.
Yes, Steve?
One question. When you make further edits prior to the town meeting,
Sure.
it's helpful if you posted on the website both the final clean version, but also a red line of this, so this audience will know what changed from tonight to town meeting.
Absolutely, I have no problem with that. I will tell you, however, I absolutely despise using red line in a document like this. I don't know, I'm seeing a few smiles, so I think you know what I'm about to say. Red line takes an outline version document and it just makes it look deplorable.
Close it up.
And so I will do it, but I'm just gonna ask all of you to have a little
Tell us
patience.
what you changed.
I could, what would be easier to do, frankly, and less messy, would be to simply highlight where the changes are. If I make changes, I could just go over it with a red highlight. The only problem with that is that it gets reproduced in black and white. The highlighting won't show up very well. But I can just tell you that simple things like changing a format style will throw those god-awful balloons on every page of this document. And I just want to make sure that the red line you get, you can read. So it might make more sense for me to do a highlighted version, if that's all right with people.
I
then-
just use a different color. For
Yeah,
all those reasons, just, green, whatever the color is, it'll still print a gray, but it's something like that.
so you're saying the red line would just be the
Instead of
sort
doing red
edits?
line, I go into the sentence, leave the sentence there,
Okay,
and put the next sentence right next to it, and just change its color to red, or
Okay.
green, or yellow, or some other color. No, I've had that, I've done that, red line, and
it's gross.
you can't get it back.
It's just so
Yeah.
awful.
You can't get it back, and it
Yeah.
adds hundreds of pages.
It
It's
does,
insane.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
But no, that would be
Unless you
very
just don't
helpful.
track the formatting.
Yeah, well, I know. I'll give this document to you and you can help me with it.
All right, so, yeah, we will do a before and after. I think we can
Yes,
accomplish
that's
that
fair.
one way or
That's it.
another. Any other questions from the audience at this point? Lori?
Sorry to keep asking things.
No, it's fine.
I don't know what the first two bullets are either. Could you summarize both of those?
The mixed-use transition district is, that the town wanted, in the comprehensive plan, and I think in subsequent work that the town did with, or the planning board did with Montezuma Planning Commission, there was an interest in trying to allow more of a mix of uses on Park Street, as I recall, which right now is what's the district that's on there now?
It's downtown business, I think, or...
No, G-
No, up Park
General
Street.
business is
Yeah.
Park Street.
What is it?
General business.
General business, right. So that mixed-use district was really a way to try to allow more types of activity in that area so that you would hopefully get better quality development. When sometimes you have a district that
Well,
might have made
the
sense
two
at one
districts
point.
between light industrial and general business were very similar.
They were, that's
So
right,
that's why Park Street just kind of,
evolved as
wanna
almost
say
like a light
hodgepodge
industrial. Yeah, it is,
uses, but-
it is a hodgepodge.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
mixed-use transition was actually part of the thinking in the comprehensive plan, and just a way to sort of give that area more definition as it redevelops over time, so it doesn't look so much like a, industrial hodgepodge, or, light industrial hodgepodge. Downtown business is really around this recognition that you have a built downtown, and that frankly is really beautiful. And how do you allow the properties there to redevelop and evolve over time without being subject to some of the requirements that might make sense in a more suburban, area? So allowing upper story residential, the sort of waivers around parking, the sort of trade-off for bicycle parking, for vehicular parking, standards for site plan review. I mean, just a way to kind of encourage activity in the downtown area without necessarily subjecting them to some of the dimensional requirements that would apply if you're doing new commercial development outside the suburban area. No problem.
Is that similar to what they term a smart growth area?
I hate that term, but yeah.
God,
I hate that term.
We've got the homes for it.
Read it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, although your smart growth district has really a housing component to
Right,
it.
yeah.
You did a chapter 40R, I think you did 2 chapter 40R districts maybe, but this is sort of 40R-ish, but not the density that you're thinking of, because it just doesn't really make sense here.
And just when we talk about mixed-use transitional or MUT,
Yeah, MUT.
Central, part of Central Ave has been designated MUT, West Main Street, and then the Park Street area, I think, around where we're doing
Right.
the parking lot and the commuter rail improvements.
Right.
Yes, Lori?
So just a couple of other thoughts on this. One is,
Sure.
I'm reading this and looking at this from my own layman perspective.
absolutely.
I'm a developer and so on.
Sure.
So I would really appreciate having an index of things like home business and, you know, it's, I don't know if
Sure.
somebody can go through here, but.
I can do an index for this.
That would be
document.
great. We can do an index, sure, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can do an index
I
in
think
Word,
it's a lot more
it's easy.
usable
Yeah.
for me at least.
Yeah, you can do an index.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the other thing I was thinking about is, I'm reflecting back on when we presented this and it got voted down.
Yes.
Or we tabled it, I guess.
Yes, we tabled it,
I
exactly.
think that's what happened.
This is just a thought, but I'm wondering if we were able to break this down into instead of presenting it all as one amendment, one big chunk that people have to digest, if we were able to break it down over a bunch of different articles so that the parts that are more controversial
I can't.
won't hold up, you're not allowed to.
No, it's not that we're not allowed to, it's that this is a fundamental restructuring of the existing bylaw.
So it's all
The
or nothing.
whole new format. Frankly, I didn't want to take responsibility for trying to edit the one that you have because there were so many problems with it. I just didn't want to, I thought once see, when the first recod was done, the Attorney General, in Massachusetts, town bylaws have to be reviewed by the Attorney General. And the Attorney General says it's okay or it's not. The Attorney General wrote a very interesting letter to Ayer and said, we understand that there are no changes in this, that it's just formatting. Therefore, we've not done any kind of substantive review. Let me tell you, when I read that letter, it was a red flag for me, like, I think we better do a substantive review, even if the AG's office didn't. And I know why they said that, because they were told it's just a recodification. So we started looking at some of the policy issues in here, knowing that they had not been reviewed by the AG, and I said, I can't take responsibility for trying to piecemeal fix this because there are just too many problems. So with that, the planning board said, fine, let's just go with starting all over, and that's what we did.
So my suggestion would be then, let's make sure that the town meeting audience is very aware of that. So
Yes.
it doesn't seem so overwhelming to
Yes,
everybody.
no,
that, holy cow, what are they hiding between? the
Right,
gaps?
exactly. Our plan is, again, we have another public workshop that we will plan and implement. I've got, plans for hopefully better communication than we had last time, and better education. We're going to put we'll put this Q&A in video form on APAC, hopefully to make sure there are resources out there for the people that want to learn what this is all about and have questions. We still have to go through a public hearing process, and different from last time, we plan on calling, or hopefully having Board of Selectmen call a special town meeting to go over this large document. So we don't have to wait to the end of annual town meeting, and we don't have to, spend hours and hours and hours waiting to discuss. And we'll dedicate as much time as town meeting needs to discuss this and get past the questions and have a educated vote. That's our intention, and we're open to feedback and comments. So that's where we're going right now.
When do you think the special town meeting might be?
We are looking to get this done by June 1st. All right? Do we have any other, and we've also, I think, gotten some feedback from the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. Conservation Committee has had an opportunity to look at this. They have their own rules and regulations that are paramount in any development project. We don't really, nothing in this zoning bylaw really impacts conservation. I haven't had any negative feedback from conservation, but again, I'm open right up until special town meeting to hear from folks if anybody has any comments. But we're going to try to move this forward. I appreciate all the comments and feedback from department staff, especially, and just to the extent we can get the news out there to folks in the air that we're moving forward on this. And it's a good thing. I really appreciate your help. All right, and I think with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
second.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.